I'm Charlene, aka the Rainbow Frequency, and this is a spirit prompt to talk to you about how I got here professionally speaking. I've done a lot of conversating about my childhood and how that helped me be initiated into being a healing practitioner and oracle or channel for spirit. But I've been prompted by spirit for a few days now, since I have opened a shared workspace with 3 other lovely creatrixes, to talk about my career and the journey that I have been on to get myself to be self-actualized and being of service in the way that I'm designed to. So here we go. I will try to briefly tell you a journey that has spanned over at least 20 years. No, more than 20 years. Woo! Don't like to say that out loud, but I'm grateful to be here. So I first, we'll start. Okay. I have always been a channel. I've always been deeply empathetic. I really truly believe that we are born designed as we are, and we have to wake up and recognize, acknowledge, and learn to work with that design. Now, I initially had wanted to be a writer, so I was going to go to an all-women's school for creative writing. My parents were very lovely and wanting to support me in this. Then I had kind of a freak out in my senior year of high school, and I ran away from home a month before I was to graduate. Wild times. But I just really didn't feel like it was the right place for me. I felt like it was a lot of money for my parents to want to spend to help me do something that I recognized in taking classes beforehand, that I didn't really care about my audience. I don't mean to be rude, but as a writer, I was writing for myself. I was channeling, it was something that helped me express within my soul what wanted to come out, and I didn't want to cater that to someone else. So I didn't feel like writing professionally was for me. So I attempted to go to college. In college, I was diagnosed with ADHD, which explained a lot because I just really wasn't ever meant to be in a cubicle, whether it was at school. At one point, I talked so much at school, being the little channel and empath that I was, that they put me in a cubicle and I just talked to myself. So, I was in college at VCU, and it was way too big for me. Those I don't remember what they're called, but like the stadium seating classrooms with tons and tons of people. As an empath, it was too overwhelming. I didn't know how to protect myself in those arenas. I also found I would do the work, but then I would turn it in and never go back because I had a huge fear of failure, of being judged. It was a hot mess. So I left that world and started waiting tables. And it was waiting tables that I really started to see what I was good at. I wasn't meant to sit. I was meant to be moving around. I was meant to talk to people. I loved it. I love waiting tables still. I'm just almost 50 and my body doesn't want to do it anymore. So I then also recognized that I really could remember people and what they wanted. They would come in once and they'd come back, and I'd be able to start up the conversation again, ask them if they wanted the same drink, So I started to recognize that my brain perhaps should be doing something else that could better utilize such talents that were kind of creepy to me, but you know. So I went into doing hair at a friend's suggestion. I will thank her for the rest of my life. My friend Stephanie looked at me one day. I was like, what about doing hair? I could see you doing that. And my grandmother had been a hairstylist, and I grew up as a baby in a salon and very much loved being a part of that world. So I was like, sure, why not? And behind the chair, I really did love doing hair for a really long time, but I always called myself the anti-hairstylist because I had no desire to make someone look like someone else. I didn't feel the need to follow trends. I more so wanted to help individuals feel comfortable in their own skin. And I would always say to people before I acknowledged that I had intuitive or psychic gifts that I just intuited what the hair wanted to do. And I really found it annoying when people wanted to fight their hair because it's a losing battle. You know, like, why do you want to do that to yourself? I don't get it. But I'm extremely low maintenance when it comes to my hair and things like that. So behind the chair, I started to recognize that I had psychic gifts. I started to recognize that I was channeling information. I started to recognize when I started getting Reiki, and then one day I was in a good place and the person that was working on me wasn't, and I just wished that I could give it back to her. And I did. And we were both like, because I wasn't expecting to be able to, and she wasn't expecting for it to happen, and it was really incredible. Now, in my 20s, I had been told I was going to be a shaman, but I just put that in the back of my mind, even though as a young child I read a book about a shaman, and I was like, oh, I love it. But it felt too great for me. I even was just like, wow, that's big. When the psychic told me, I was like, you know, maybe when I'm older. But looking back, like as a writer, I remember having the feeling like I didn't want to go to this all-girls school for creative writing. It felt too small because I grew up in a small town, and it was equally a small town, not very far away from my parents. And I really felt, and this is insane to me, I really felt like I needed to suffer so I had something to write about. What? That's crazy talk. Who wants to invite suffering into their life? But it, you know who? Someone who's meant to be a shaman, someone who's meant to be a healer, someone who's meant to work with that empathy to be able to resonate with others because we have a shared story or journey, and I'm meant to help show them how I got myself through that. I've gotten myself through depression because I was in the wrong situation and I wasn't being true to myself. I've gotten myself through grief, through betrayal and great heartache. I've been divorced now twice, and neither of those experiences was a cakewalk. I wasn't entering the marriage thinking it would end whatsoever, but I had to choose myself in both occasions, and I'm very grateful for the shadow work that took place. But, you know, so in that journey of being a hairstylist, I got to a place where I really wanted to create an environment, a safe place for people to open up, because when people sit in my chair or even just meet with me randomly on the street, they tell me all sorts of deep stuff. I'm sure a lot of you who are empathetic and have this capacity within you have experienced that. Strangers will tell you everything, things that they're like, I never told anyone that. So I didn't want to be in a busy salon. So I don't remember the chronicle timeline because its dates are a bit swimmy in my brain, but when my son was 1.5 years, my then husband got laid off, and I needed to create stability and income for myself, and then provide him, I thought, with an avenue for him to make money within our shared business. So I opened a salon called Clippy Hedren. And I still have people to this day tell me how much they miss that, and it really means the world to me, because it really was a lovely space where I wanted to create an environment where hairstylists could thrive in a booth rental situation. I wanted it to showcase local artists, so I had a rotating art gallery. I had different vendors selling their crafts. You know, I had a person who made perfume, someone who recycled clothing, all sorts of awesome people showcasing their talents, and I loved it. I really did. And then I met Tommy Rodriguez there, who worked in the back. He'd been there for many, many decades, and I came in and I'm like, hi, I'm infiltrating your space and taking over the front of your salon, or your building. But crazy, years back when I was an apprentice doing hair, I kept walking to work and imagining myself in a shared workspace building with other businesses, and there's more to the story, but we won't go into all of it because, again, I'm trying to be brief. But I wound up putting that dream out of my mind and then one day actualizing it. And it really wasn't until recently that I realized I'd done that. Manifestation isn't always quick. You know, sometimes you have to have the dream and then focus on something else, in my case, for several years, and then actualized it. But then, you know, I went through a divorce with my first husband. In that time, even though there was great setbacks because of that divorce and that situation, I managed to keep the business going, even though I never set it up to make more than I made as a hairstylist working for someone else. I wanted everyone else to thrive, and I put myself on the back burner. Valuable lesson there. But when my son was going into elementary school, I very much just had the feeling I couldn't do it all. Like, I couldn't be a single mother, running a business, raising a child, and handle all that would be needed from me in the elementary school setting. So I wound up walking away from Clippy Hedren and selling it to the people that worked there so that they could take over. You know, and I didn't know it consciously, but I had a lot of shadow work to face when my son went to elementary school, because it wasn't an easy time for me. I was deeply insecure as a child, being an empath and a channel, and not necessarily being conscious of the fact that I was a channel. I did recognize that I often made people uncomfortable when I told them things that they didn't want to hear, you know, so it was just, or they weren't expecting to hear from a child. So I wound up shutting myself down in a lot of ways. Like, I had a huge fear of being seen, of people recognizing I had gifts, because I started doing divination for self-preservation when I was a teenager, and my parents freaked out. And then I also grew up outside of Lynchburg, Virginia, where that was not an environment that really accepted such things. So I really was in hiding. And then I remember my son in kindergarten like saying one day, well, aren't you a witch? And I was like, no. And don't ever tell anyone that I am. Like, we don't share that kind of stuff with people. We have to get to know them before we show our weird. Later, I was like, what in the world was that? And what kind of advice to a young person? No. So I had to undo that with my son and myself, because it's just like, I had to I had in my spiritual journey a few past life spontaneous recalls where I realized that my huge fear of being seen was because I'd been persecuted and killed because of my abilities and the capacity of my gifts. You know, I'd had people that I'd helped turn on me in a witch hunt. You know, I'd previously to that been killed by someone because they were jealous of my gifts. So, you know, I had to overcome a lot to really even let the general world around me know that I practice divination. You know, I would talk a little bit about astrology, but until recently, most people would be like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" But, so yeah, I'm rambling, but it all goes together, I swear. So, I walked away from Clippy Hedron. I started working for other people. In that time, you know, I was very grateful for the places that I got to work, and they helped me rebuild my life. But then it got to a point where I was really craving again to have my own business. So then in 2019, I decided to leave a shared workspace group to go out with another person to open a salon called Haven. Hence, Haven is still my LLC name. But, so I opened this salon, and, you know, I really wanted it to be a salon that was also a healing space. You know, I was going to come out of the spiritual closet. I had a room to do Reiki, because in 2019, 2020, my father, who had congestive heart failure, was really getting towards the end of his life, and I could feel it. I also, you know, was depressed because I no longer really wanted to just do hair. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted more. And I recognized, too, that my clients would open up and, like, share deeply personal stuff, so I really wanted to not be in a room full of other people so that I could have a more private space for people to heal in. So, opened Haven, January 2020. Pardon me. And at first I was there by myself. Then my partner came in right before before lockdown because of that virus. So then it was this moment of like, oh God, like I can't afford to keep this business going and pay for my mortgage. I have to now homeschool my son, and I can't really do that while taking him to work with me. So, you know, prior to opening the place, I would sort of daydream with my clients, like if I could do hair from my garden, that would be so lovely, but I never even dreamed it was a possibility. Then whammo, there I was at home doing hair and looking at the garden, and it, you know, I was like, wow, okay, this actualized. And it helped get through those early school years, and I really was grateful. But I then, because of lockdown, shifted gears dramatically, much faster than I was expecting to move towards doing Reiki. You know, I was studying at that time to become a Reiki teaching master. And also it helped me to be able to assist my father in his crossing over, which I'm so grateful for. I never expected to study Reiki and then realize I was a medium. I had a deep-seated fear of ghosts because of movies and other people's stories. or experiences. So I was very shut down to that. But luckily, it was because I knew that my dad was going to be one of my guides that it helped me get over that fear. I mean, it took some time still after he crossed, and my guides had to express, like, look, we don't want to scare the shit out of you. We want to create a relationship with you, so relax. So I had to relax and get over my fear. And, you know, at first I was terrified to even tell people I had a message from their passed on loved ones because I thought they'd get mad at me. All sorts of interesting stuff. I also, having grown up in a very religious small town and with a Catholic stepmother who said some things to me that were very challenging, I had no interest in religion. I thought angels were like stupid. The way that people depicted them or talked about them didn't resonate with me. Like cherubs, little babies with wings. No, that really, nope. I mean, no. So when I started studying Reiki, and all of a sudden angels and deities and, you know, passed on loved ones, and I mean, as a channel, I can channel anything and everything that wants to speak with you. Now, I have learned to be very, very firm in the fact that I personally do not wish to engage with anything that isn't meeting with me and the individual I'm working with the utmost high vibrational, unconditional love. Set that stage. Create those loving barriers. Have spiritual hygiene. Very important. But I had to realize and get over my fear that I wasn't able to do that for myself. You know, I had to learn that I was the authority of myself. I had to learn that I got to dictate what I engaged with, how I engaged with it, not the other way around, both personally with humans and everything else, you know? So, so I had to walk away from Haven, which was heartbreaking, and while it got me where I needed to go, I still had to grieve it. It was really devastating. And at that point, I had my mother tell me that my father was very impressed that after closing one business, that I had the courage and the capacity to even open a second one. That was so meaningful to me, you know. At the end of his life, you know, he looked at me and asked how I'd gotten so smart, which my dad was a German engineer, Navy man. So he questioned everything that I ever wanted to do. Like when I wanted to be a vegetarian in high school, he made me write a research paper because he was convinced I was gonna deplete myself. And then when I started receiving acupuncture and Reiki, he was freaked out and thought that something bad was gonna happen to me. But then he also, you know, when I was diagnosed with ADHD, he started sending me scientific articles that discussed it, and instead of vilifying it and making it seem like a handicap, he really worked with me to see it as like, okay, this is how I'm designed. This is, I'm not meant to be sitting in a cubicle focused on one thing. Instead of being a hunter, I'm a gatherer. I see big picture, you know, I'm a multitasker. Anyway, he really empowered me to look at it like, okay, well, I want to work in my life using who I am to my advantage instead of putting myself in places where it's not going to work. Very thankful for that. And then he once sent me this article that was like showing the scientific journal showing that Reiki masters, they could measure the amperes, I believe it is, the energy that comes off of their hands. They can measure it like you would measure a light bulb. And, so it was just really cool that I really helped him expand his belief system instead of being very much just narrowly focused on Western medicine. So it was just, I'm very grateful for these relationships. So, then I recently started feeling like I really need to take myself back out into a brick and mortar, which I had previously told myself, like, I never want to do that again. It's way too expensive, so much heartache in having to walk away from the ones that I had. But I started to have that yin, and like I literally had said out loud to a friend that I'm really starting to think that I want to have a brick and mortar again. Just need to figure out how that's gonna come into my life. Then the very next day, Erin Hurley Brown, whom I've known for decades and worked with her before, messaged me and asked if I knew of a room that she could rent to practice Reiki. And my friend Susan had told me the room next to her was available months prior, because she and I had the desire to have a wellness center together, because she practices massage and is phenomenal. And we were looking very casually at spaces out in the world, but they were all very expensive, and we didn't have investment capital to sink into a big venture. And so when Erin reached out, I messaged Susan. I was like, is that room still available? And she said yes. So I went, and my son and I had gone out to get ice cream. So then on our way home, I stopped and took a picture of the sign on the building and called, and the man immediately answered. And the very next day I went to see it. I had spoken to my friend about wanting to do it on Wednesday. Erin messaged me on Thursday. I went to see it on Friday. She didn't even see it. She said yes to it just because I said I thought it was good. Love her. And then we signed everything on Saturday and Sunday and had the keys on Monday. We were both in shock that it even happened, but it did. And then I had previously messaged Jess when I had been talking with Susan, because Jess is newly certified as an acupuncturist. All of us practice Reiki, but we all have different talents that we bring to the table. And then Kristen messaged me. So it was like this huge snowball effect where it came together, and I am just so infinitely grateful. This all happened within Mercury retrograde, which retrogrades help us to revisit things, help us to renegotiate any RE word. So the fact that I got to have this come back around, and it popped up in my Facebook memory feed that it was the same time that I'd opened Clippy Hedren. Whoa. Seriously. Whoa. Universe. I love you, and the signs and synchronicities, and the way that if we have the trust and the faith and the willingness to be open, that it can all come together. So, I'm just here to say, 1, manifestation takes time, often. Not always, obviously, but, 2, you have to have courage to take those leaps of faith out of your comfort zone in the ways that your soul and heart are calling you to. I recently joined Alignable as a business to network with others, and it asked, what is your ideal client or customer? And I've been sitting with that, and I'm like, my ideal client or customer is someone who is dedicated to healing themselves, is brave enough to get uncomfortable and face that pain, that trauma, those insecurities, the ways that they're limiting or blocking themselves, and trade that in exchange to have faith in themselves and their divine design, and to be dedicated to following their heart and soul, to getting to know themselves and actualizing as themselves to follow their calling. Because it is, the healing journey is uncomfortable. It often takes time. The labyrinth, a healing symbol seen around the world, is known for that adage of in, out, and back again 7 times. It's not necessarily literally 7 times for people, but at the same time, it's an evolution that takes place where you heal one level, then you have to live through putting those new practices into, how do I want to say this? You have to heal, sort of change your perspective, recognize patterns and behaviors, work to change it, implement those changes. Then you get to the next stage where you have more to learn, you recognize there's more healing and things to let go of. It's this uptick. I often will liken it to, depending on how much trauma or karma that you come into, you have different levels of cake. Some people just have a few layers of cake to acknowledge, process, digest, and rework for themselves, whereas other people have huge wedding cakes or quinceañera cakes that they have to get through. So it's just, don't rush it, and be willing to get to know yourself and be dedicated to building the faith in yourself and your connection to the divine, whatever you want to call that. Anyway, there you have it. That's what they wanted me to channel out and express to you all. I am so grateful for how I've gotten here, even though I have endured a lot that most people wouldn't even want to hear about. It all helped me work through some serious stuff that I needed to let go of, and then raise my estimation of myself and my value. And as a hairstylist, even when I was a master hairstylist, I never charged as much as I could, and it was almost like a, please sir, may I have this money for the service that I'm doing for you? Like, will you please value it? And then I had to recognize, like, that's silly. Like, I don't necessarily want to be insanely expensive, but because I really do like meeting with the common person. However, I'm not going to act like I'm not valuable. It's not an inflated ego. Like, I really had to get past being afraid of people thinking I was being egotistical. No, I am proud of who I am, how I'm designed. I'm infinitely in awe and grateful for my gifts and talents. And I'm really learning to work through people-pleasing, perfectionism, policing myself, so that I can unleash my full power and potential, prosperity and abundance for myself. I'm not doing these things anymore to prove myself and have you like me. I would love it if you liked me and we could connect and be friends. Like, I really love connecting and engaging with people and meeting people heart to heart. But if I'm not for you, so be it. Totally understandable. I am a doorway. I am a means to have a breakthrough. to be initiated into yourself. Not everyone's ready for that. But if you are, I am here, and I am willing and ready to meet with you and create a sacred space for you to heal yourself and get to know yourself. And the people that I work with are also incredible. So just you wait. We're going to have an open house soon, and our bios are coming out so that we can showcase the many talents of the creatrixes that are a part of the Celestial Healing Collective. That's the name of our studio on Lakeside Avenue. So can't wait to see you and hold space with you. We're going to have a lot of amazing workshops. I am also providing meetup groups. I have a divorce recovery meetup where we focus on dissolving cords. I'm going to create another one that's not focused on people who have been through a divorce, because who doesn't want to know how to dissolve cords for themselves? I also, in October, am working with a woman to do to speak for her grief support group, because I really do want to provide these spaces for people to have education and means to support themselves, and also to provide community so that you're not alone. I am currently doing a spiritual development meetup group, August 25th. You can go to my bio. There's links there to all these things. But, I love meeting with people to empower them to help themselves heal and work with their gifts. I feel a little bit like the hat in Harry Potter that sorts the different students into the various houses, but more so I can meet with a person and pick up what their gifts and abilities are so that I can help guide them to work with them. That's personally, as a Reiki teaching master and Aquarius rising, I am not here to teach you how to rotely follow how someone else does something. No, I'm here to teach you how you do it, how to tap into your heart and soul and your own creativity to express it the way it wants to come through you. Again, we're all divinely designed. I'm here to show you how you innately intuit or perceive things so that you can stop dismissing it and learn to work with it. So anyway, best wishes, all love. I am here both in person and online. I have worked with people in Richmond and various places in the United States, as well as internationally, which I'm so grateful that I've been able to meet such lovely people through Instagram and other means. I very much love the fact that instead of being so compartmentalized, we're becoming more globally connected. Absolutely, absolutely love it. So I'm here if you want to work with me. I hope that this message helped you in some way to empower you to courageously follow your heart and souls. See you next time.